too bad. I just wanted to let you know that your microphone sounds different on my end for some reason.
I don't know what could be different. So just going to have to live with it, I guess.
Yep. Just like we're going to have to live with this heat.
Some of us.
Yeah,
some of us will just die.
That's true.
And some of us will just go crazy from the heat, like David Lee Roth.
They're going to be like rabid, like animals out there and just like David Lee Roth. Yeah. Going into a gas.
Animals like DLR.
DLR. Going in and getting jelly donuts from gas stations and stuff.
Yeah. What's he say? He says,
give me a bottle of anything and a glazed donut to go.
That is one of the most prized, cherished videos on MTV.
It's so good.
80s.
Can you help me? My doctor said I have to take a laxative.
Not in my store, you don't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's good stuff.
Really, really, really good stuff.
Wow. Maybe we should do the intro because I have another video I want to talk about real quick.
All right, let's do that.
All right.
Great. Citizens of Earth, welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I'm Dan.
And I'm Eirk.
And together we review stuff, mostly like local music and talk about videos and, David Lee Roth.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what I want to talk about, it's pretty serious, but I think it'll be okay. It reminded me because the David Lee Roth video has a short little movie at the beginning, right?
Sure.
Kind of like both of like, is that the Yankee Rose video? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yep.
And a side note, if you all haven't listened to the Eat 'em and Smile Spanish version, it's amazing. Like really an amazing album. Anyway,
okay.
That doesn't matter. So another video I just watched minutes ago had a little movie at the beginning as well. It was for Cyndi Lauper's Goonies Are Good Enough. I don't know if you remember that song or not.
Yeah. The yeah. Like that. Yep.
Good enough.
Yeah, it was actually the theme song to the video game, the Goonies video game too.
Oh dang.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But it's like yeah. You don't remember the Goonies video game?
No. What happened?
I think it was for NES and like when you turned it on, it was that 8-bit version of
oh right.
Yeah, that's what
I think I do remember that. I have a couple of questions, and if you know the answer, we'll take them separately. I'll present them separately, and if you know the answers, let me know. Okay. The video was all about wrestling, because that apparently was Cyndi Lauper's deal. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everyone was in it, the Iron Sheik and Roddy Piper and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And also Captain Lou Albano, who's in the Girls Just Want to Have Fun video as well. Okay, Captain Lou Albano has rubber bands in his face. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
How are they in his face?
Well,
I've wondered this since about 1984, and I've never figured out how he has rubber bands in his face. What do you think?
I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who doesn't remember these videos very well.
Okay. Okay. So for those who don't know Captain Lou Albano, I guess I just assumed everyone was like me. The rubber bands are hanging out of his face.
Mm-hmm.
Like their whole rubber bands just hanging.
Wait, so like when you say out of his face, you mean like what do you mean?
That's my question. Why don't you, Dan, real quick, just look up a picture of Captain Lou Albano.
Okay, Captain Luau. Okay, Lou
Albano, yeah. Oh, he was Mario in the
Luo
Mario
Albano.
movie too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I totally
Captain
remember this
Lou.
guy now because
Right,
of that.
yeah.
All right,
So
so he's got rubber band.
if you
so wait
click
a
on
minute,
the
hold
images,
Oh yeah, okay. I
Okay.
see what you're talking about.
right,
Okay.
rubber bands in his face. How are they in his face? Like,
Now
what
that
are
is
they?
puzzling.
Are they? Is it a piercing? Or
That would be my guess.
Uh,
If I had to guess, I would say probably
all right.
there's piercings there. I mean that I can't see any other possible way.
Like the reason why I don't really care about. It's the 80s, whatever.
Uh-huh. The 80s they did all kinds of stuff to people's faces.
But I just want to know how. Okay, so anyway, maybe it wasn't the Super Mario Brothers movie. I think it might have been the cartoon show. He did like the
Okay,
intros and
he did the
outros.
entry. Yep, gotcha.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so
Mario, I think it was called like Mario World or something.
yeah. So
Super Mario show. Anyway, sorry.
Anyone listening, if you know how Captain Lou Albano has rubber bands in his face, then let us know. Okay, here's my real thing though.
I know the feeling.
It is
the real thing.
The essence of the show.
Bow. Bow.
God, that's one of my favorite songs.
An amazing
ever.
song. The best song on the album.
I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're familiar with the song Next to Be With You by Mr. Big?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so all my life, well, since 1991 when it came out, I have never understood the lyric in the chorus, waited on a line of greens and blues. Okay? That's the lyric. Waited on a line of greens and blues.
That's seriously a line.
Yes.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Waited on a line of greens and blues. That's what they sing. Okay. So for however many years that is, 100 years, I've wondered what the hell that could possibly mean. All right. So I'm watching the Cyndi Lauper Goonies video. The first lyric of Goonies Are Good Enough is, here we are hanging on to strains of green and blues.
Okay.
That's insane.
Okay.
And I looked up.
That is weird.
Green and blues, or greens and blues, and the only thing I could find was something that said it was a metaphor for political opposing forces. But who's writing these songs? Who knows this phrase? So these are questions I'm presenting to our listeners, essentially. To you first, Dan, if you knew. But if you don't, I want to know.
I just looked it up. Yeah. All right. So check this out. This is what I found on the internet. So the lyric officially waited on a line of greens and blues.
Mm-hmm.
As for what that means, the prevailing theory is that greens represent jealousy and blues represent depression. Basically, while one of the guys from Mr. Big watched a bunch of other dudes run a train on the girl of his dreams, he alternated between envy and fury.
Okay.
Makes decent sense. Let's go with that.
Okay, but why would Cyndi Lauper 7 years earlier write the same lyric?
So hold on. Is that, what song by Cyndi Lauper is that?
Goonies Are Good Enough.
Huh. That's puzzling. So maybe it is an homage to Cyndi Lauper.
Okay. Problem is, the Pixies have a song that came out later, newer Pixies, called Greens and Blues. And the prevailing line in that is slip into the greens and blues. So either two bands took influence from Cyndi Lauper, or Mr. Big took influence from Cyndi Lauper, and then the Pixies took influence from Mr. Big, or this is a phrase that is used that I've never heard of and can't really find any examples of on the internet. So it's a mystery. It's a mystery.
It has to be a secret language that they're using, because all musicians are they're all members of some sort of cult.
I want to kill everyone. Satan is good. Satan is our pal.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
They're all
the ASCAP cabal.
You got it. 100%. Look it up. I'll be doing a Wikipedia entry on it here before too long.
It says right here, ASCAP
there.
cabal, creator of the term greens and blues. Wow, we figured it out.
Yeah. Now, who's the author of the article?
Actually, it's Cyndi Lauper and Frank Black.
Yeah.
Black Francis.
Black Francis, or Charles Thompson.
Or that dude from Mr. Big. It doesn't have his actual name, just says that dude.
Hey, I got a question that has nothing to do with this subject.
Thank goodness.
But it might have something to do with this subject, because this is really interesting. We're going to come back to this. We're going to get to the bottom of this next episode.
Yeah.
Greens and blues. We're going to figure this out.
And we need your help, listeners.
We need your help. Yeah. So what we got so far, Cyndi Lauper, Mr. Big, Pixies.
Yeah.
That's what we got so far. We got to find another band that's been doing it, like Collective Soul or something, maybe.
Oh, so maybe we should search like Spotify for the term green. No, that won't work, because that wouldn't have brought up two of the songs we're talking about. We're going to have to just dig. We're going to have to research every song ever written.
Yeah.
And check the lyrics.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that by next episode. If there's two guys on the internet with a podcast that's gonna do that, it's gonna be me and you, Eric. You down?
Yeah. What's the first song?
The first song.
A. There's probably just a song called A.
Yeah.
We'll just start there, I guess.
So
we have to find a database of all songs ever written.
I wonder if that exists. That's got to exist on the internet, right?
I don't know. I guess it is the internet.
It is the internet. There is everything there. So check this out.
Okay.
I was just thinking about this today, and so I have a question for you, Eric.
Oh man. Okay.
Have you ever heard of Gus Gibson?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Gus Gibson was a songwriter, one of the best songwriters.
Huh.
I think he's still around today. I first heard of him from a friend of mine that I went to school. Well, he was kind of a friend, but I don't know, more of an acquaintance type sort of guy. Like I just remember this Scott kid. I knew him from elementary school, but we kind of hung out a little bit through high school and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And he was quite the joker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always drawing cartoons and things like that.
Okay.
He came up with the name Gus Gibson. And so we went around and told everybody how awesome Gus Gibson was.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody actually looked him up or anything. But anyway, we had a fake favorite songwriter that we made up.
Yeah.
And we were writing him on our, notebooks, and you know how you used to do that in school? Mm-hmm. You would write your favorite bands. Like my backpack always had 70 bands on the back,
Oh yeah, just written in Sharpie.
Yeah, just written in Sharpie. And so I would always.
I might do that again.
Yeah, no shit. I included Gus Gibson in those all the time.
Okay.
And so you had the Dead Kennedys, you had Fugazi, Nirvana, Gus Gibson,
Nice. All right.
And anyway, I want to know if this sounds absolutely crazy to everybody else, that when we were 17 or 18, we were doing this.
Well, the funny thing is, apparently Gus Gibson is a real musician.
Nuh-uh. Are you serious?
Yeah, for real, like blues.
So
maybe from the 40s.
Wow.
I don't know.
So I wonder if this guy was pulling my chain about Gus Gibson not being real.
Dang.
Well, now I'm going to have to check this guy out, Gus Gibson.
Yeah, he might end up being one of your favorite artists.
You never know. You never know. So he was a blues musician, right?
Yeah, it's I'm waiting for my computer, which if anyone out there does IT Mac work, let me know, because my machine barely functions at this point.
Well, you know that if
I'm just gonna use my platform right now. But yeah, Discogs is showing a comp called Red River Blues, and then it has 1934 through 1943. So
that might be
real
good.
old Georgia blues,
Delta blues, maybe.
Yeah. So your friend was either clairvoyant or an asshole.
Yeah, well, he was kind of an asshole, to be honest with you.
And
I do remember
his name was Scott.
His name was Scott. Yep.
So Scott, if you're listening, the jig is up, bro.
The jig is up.
We now know a-hole.
A-hole, yes. Thank you very much. So now I'm gonna have to go so after all these years, I'm gonna finally check out Gus Gibson and find out that he was totally right.
Oh yeah. He has a song called Milk Cow Blues. I bet that's awesome.
That's got to be good. I'll tell you what, man. Blues is always hit or miss with me, but when it comes to that old like Delta blues that sounds like it's played by some guy like who recorded on a tape deck, which tape decks probably didn't really exist.
He played it into a can.
Yeah, played it into a can. That's the kind of blues that I like.
I do too. Me too.
Old like Howlin' Wolf. Howlin' Wolf is amazing.
Howlin' Wolf's the best.
It
is. It combines that sort of real old sound, like Robert Johnson, scratchy blues, Delta blues, but then like that heavy electric guitar, like bombastic, just heavy ass guitar. That tone is outrageous. And his voice, Howlin' Wolf's the best.
Well, then of course there was R.L. Burnside, and I always liked his signature. Wella. Like
what's funny? I'm gonna mention R.L. Burnside today.
No, my gosh!
And our reviews.
Speaking of our reviews,
ooh,
snap!
Oh, nice!
I've got the power to do reviews.
I thought you kind of sounded like R.L. Burnside singing that. And now I want power. Now I want to do a blues cover of "I've Got the Power" by Snap.
I bet that would be tight. You know what? Then maybe that's what we should do, Eric. We should start a blues band, an old school blues band.
Well, we are the right pedigree. We've
got everything.
A couple old white dudes from Iowa. Oh, that old Midwest blues.
Yeah, Midwest blues.
Damn.
Well, so we got 3 very interesting releases today.
Yeah.
Come on, everybody, it's record time.
So my pick for this episode is by a group called Pagan Athletes. The record's called Landlocked. And it came out just now. So Pagan Athletes is an Omaha group. It's mostly made up of siblings, Nathan Wolf, who's on drums and vocals, and Griffin Wolf, who's on keyboards and vocals. And on this record, there's some other parts that come in, accordion and violin and things like that. But mostly it's the drums, the synths, or organs, and the vocals. There is a ton of styles blended on this. It's pretty hard to pin down, but when I read off the list of things that it reminds me of, you're going to understand how much I liked this record. But yeah, it goes from like doomy organ dirges to like almost like klezmer style, like accordion, and also just musical modes and things like that. It has elements of like spazzy synth rock. It has elements of grunge and like the sort of dissonance that grunge, utilized a lot, and not only on the guitars, but the songwriting, how they sort of move in half steps, and sometimes it can be sort of out of key or whatever. They utilize that element a lot too. It's really, I don't know how to say it, really disconnected is how it felt to me. Like the left brain and the right brain not really working together, but also at the same time working perfectly together. I don't know how to describe that. I know I'm getting a little weird and esoteric with this description, but it's because I think this music is a little weird and esoteric too. It's goofy at times. It's dark, fractured, which is kind of what I was talking about before. You know, the words like that, angular, stuff like that. It's really choppy. It's a lot of fun though, like a lot of fun. I thought, not all of it. Some, like I said, sometimes it does get sort of doomy and dark and heavy, but even at those times, it's still, the drums and keyboards for the most part, and these sort of, the vocals are kind of sing-songy and sort of off, but in a really super cool way, I think. Like kind of like the Mountain Goats or Fugazi. But yeah, the drums and keyboards, it's like the energy that only that kind of duo, I think, can bring, where there's nothing else to get in the way, you know? It's like they can move freely in complete tightness, independently of each other, bring it back together, and it just doesn't, they don't have to think about anything else. They can just be as tight and on or off, for that matter, as they want to be in that moment. Plus, you have that sort of sibling connection too, and you can hear that on here. I think it's like a mind meld at times. Like it's extremely tight, and like I said, super sort of. I hate saying the word angular so much, but I mean this is pretty much the definition of that. But yeah, I don't have a lot else to say about it. If you like this kind of stuff, if you like sort of dissonant, choppy, almost psych at times, yeah, I loved this, and I don't have a lot else to say about it. Maybe Dan will have other things to say, but things that it reminded me of: Brainiac, Nirvana, Secret Chiefs 3, Sonic Youth, Devo, Men's Recovery Project, Section 25, Trans Am, Fashion Pimps. Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I loved it. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Yes, I absolutely love this, Eirk. I listened to this probably 5 or 6 times at least.
Nice.
Maybe more. In fact, I can almost guarantee I probably listened to it more since you recommended it. We have a lot of parallels in how we both viewed the record. I feel I do think I have there's maybe some slight differences in how I perceived it, but overall you're pretty much on point with how I kind of felt about it and what it kind of sounded like to me. So the record starts off, I gotta say, with one of the coolest first tracks, I think, called Allegra. It's very gloomy and hypnotizing. And it has, like you mentioned, the organ. It has this like organ synth. I can't really tell if it's a combination of both or if it's one or the other. But it sounds straight out of a horror science fiction like score meets like just a frightening carnival. It's got kind of this like frightening, sort of like, I think that's maybe where you would maybe feel like the Secret Chiefs 3 comparison a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I do agree with that. And it's also just got this like really eerie sort of spoken word, or maybe eerie is not even the right word for it. Just, I don't know, monotone. And I don't know. I just think it's very cool. And then after that, it goes like tons of different places, as you mentioned, Eirk. Straight up noise rock, almost synth pop or indie rock. Yeah, it definitely has a quirkiness and, like you mentioned, Eirk, goofiness. Yeah, mostly it's synth and drums, but I think that they utilize those two elements that, it almost exclusively is that very, very well. Like it's got a really, really full sound. And this is probably one of the like best sounding duos like I've heard. The one track that really stood out to me was this track called The Blockade, which it's just almost straight up electronic music. But everything else on the record, it has a post-rock edge to it. But that song in particular, and I can't even begin to describe why I like that song so much. By far my favorite one, but the entire thing is just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the singer kind of does this sometimes almost like a talking sort of thing, but yeah, also has a really great sort of sense of like off-kilter melody. And then every once in a while he just goes off and he's screaming, and it almost sounds like he could be in a metal band when he does that at times. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say this record is super heavy, but I would say it definitely is intense. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I got to say about it. I love the record. So the stuff that this reminded me of, number one is the band USA is a Monster. Mm-hmm. Totally reminded me of that. I would also say, in the same sense that you were describing how they utilize the keyboard and drums situation in a way where nothing else can get in the way. Definitely reminded me of Quasi and the Aquarium. Men's Recovery Project, definitely. Six Finger Satellite, a little bit. Chinese Stars, Mile Marker. Fashion Pimps for sure. Liars, a little bit. And yeah, the vocal presentation to me sounded mostly like Fugazi and Shellac, and then also maybe a little bit of Slint as far as the vocal presentation goes. And then I could also see a little bit of like Sam Coombs from Quasi and a little bit of like Doug Marsh from Built to Spill in the vocals as well. Very cool stuff. Yeah, definitely one of the best records that I've heard of the year so far. Of one of the best records I've heard this year so far. My pick, I love equally as much. This is actually recommended from, it came recommended to me. I don't know about you, Eric. Came recommended to me by enemy of the show, Chuck, who we haven't talked about in a while.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing.
Right? Yeah, we're trying to keep this show Chuck free for right now. So the name of this record, it's from a band called Water From Your Eyes, and it's called Everyone's Crushed. Now, Water From Your Eyes, I don't know where they're from, but I do know that it's a duo consisting of Rachel Brown on vocals and then Nate Atmos on guitar, and I think he does programming, probably plays some analog synths and keyboards, though I'm not 100% sure on that. But the music on this record is just something that I have fallen in love with for the last week. This has been on such repeat, just everywhere that I listen to music. To me, it's the perfect cross-pollination of a ton of different genres. Like Pagan Athletes, but in a much different way. this record also goes a bunch of different places. What I hear is kind of a dissonant kind of production all throughout. Kind of has a dreamy like feel to it, which I really dig, because to me this is almost like the perfect summer record, because while it's definitely something new to me, it also kind of rings some nostalgia bells for me a little bit. And I'll explain that here in a minute. But basically, throughout the 9 tracks on this record, they managed to blend elements of punk, hip hop, noise, post punk, a little bit of twee pop, some electronic music, maybe a little bit of dance and techno, and even like new wave. Also vaporwave, mall wave, and it just goes just a lot of different places. Rachel's voice is perfect for what they are doing. It has kind of this sort of talking quality to it, but it just sounds really cool with the backdrop of all the music and everything that's going on musically. And I think overall, I would say that is definitely rooted in like sort of 90s punk, sort of. And then I would say that now this is going to sound kind of dumb, so I warn you, but the way that I can sort of describe this music is like, I can't think of any other way to describe it but like thrift store music. And what I mean by that is that when you go into a thrift store, you're kind of picking up things and kind of blending them together in a cart. And that's kind of what I feel is sort of going on here. Like, I feel like there's sort of elements of like vintage stuff from the past in a weird sort of way. But I also feel like they're going in such a new direction, new, interesting direction. And that overall, it's just a really fun record to me. And it sounds to me like Nate Atmos and Rachel Brown are having a blast creating this kind of music. It just sounds like they're in there messing around with the equipment that they have and just putting together just something really fun and fantastic. Yeah, I would say like Out There is by far my favorite track. It has just a really cool bass line. True Life, I think, is mind blowing. The last track called Buy My Product is absolutely amazing. It's got this really sort of just fun post-punk kind of bass line. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And if you're just sort of in the mood for something where there's kind of just a lot going on, but yet I feel like there's a total tight, straight focus on what they're doing, it just sounds like it's really, really tightly, like they have a vision for what they're going for. And overall, it's kind of one of the most unique records, in my opinion. As far as the stuff that it reminds me of, Biss, for one, I would say a little bit of Bjork, Bumblebees 81, Beck, Beastie Boys, Stereolab, Luscious Jackson, really anything on Grand Royal in the 90s. But also I think there's a little bit of like, I don't know, like Young Marble Giants, maybe even a little bit of like sort of, I don't have any true examples of this, but as I mentioned before, like there does seem to be kind of like elements of like vaporwave, mall wave and stuff like that. Like maybe Eirk, if, and I don't know, maybe you totally disagree with me on that. But maybe you could think of some examples that would be closer to like kind of what I'm hearing there. But yeah, overall, I just think this is an absolutely crazy record, and it's awesome. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it, but it's called Everyone's Crushed and from Water From Your Eyes. So check it out. What did you think, Eirk?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I actually saw Water From Your Eyes not that long ago. They were at Mission Creek in Iowa City at Gates. So,
oh, that's right. Yeah, Mission Creek. I forgot about that.
I did only catch a couple of songs. I think there was another show that we wanted to get to, but it was cool. And if I remember right, there were actually 3 people on stage. I mean, everything I've seen just lists the 2 members you mentioned. So it was the singer and someone running like keyboards and electronics, but then they had a live guitar player too, which you can, when you listen to this, you can hear why, but I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, like Dan said, this has a lot of different elements to it. I found it to be, the songs had a lot of movement to them, but also sort of a mellow, immersive soundscape sort of feel to it at the same time. So you get some really cool moments with those sort of differing elements. I thought it had moments of like escape room, which is a genre that's indefinable, but it does incorporate like the vaporwave stuff that you were talking about, a lot of kind of drippy sounds, if that makes any sense. It was kind of psych at times, kind of psychedelic. No wave. It was kind of shoegazy, like Dan mentioned. But an element that I thought was interesting, and this is where I said earlier I was going to talk about R.L. Burnside, is it had sort of this hip hop blues thing happening. Like R.L. Burnside did it. John Spencer did things like that, and Luscious Jackson, like you said, sort of Grand Royal-y kind of things like that, but it definitely has that element to it. And for me, the biggest reason for that was, I think the beats are electronic, and so some of those were sort of hip-hop-ish at their core, but the guitars are super choppy and glitchy. And I don't mean like glitchy like dubstep. I mean like they're almost like samples where the ends are cut off just a millisecond too much. And so they come in and they feel very much like samples. And then I don't know exactly how that was accomplished, but it sounds like when you listen to R.L. Burnside or some of John Spencer, you can tell that it's a blues guitar that's been sampled and chopped and dropped into place. And I kind of got that feeling from this throughout. So that's just kind of a weird thing, because I wouldn't say this obviously is like a blues album by any means. But if you really listen to the guitar parts, they're really like that, kind of like Howlin' Wolf, like we were talking about. They're similar in a sense. So that's pretty interesting. There's lots of drippy synths, a lot of plucked sort of sounds. I always talk about the Carpless Strong filter on a synth. But, that's really apparent through this whole thing. And that's sort of, in that escape room vaporwave sort of realm too. There's a lot of noisy atmospheric background kind of sounds happening, sometimes just during certain parts, sometimes for entire tracks. But yeah, the vocals, like you mentioned, are super cool. I think they sound super stark and dry. I mean, they just sound like someone right next to you singing. And I love that sound. And just like Dan already said, that's the same, almost exact same vocal style and production, especially of Young Marble Giants. It really has that element to it. And some of the music and the way it's presented is sparse, like Young Marble Giants as well. But I really liked it. It was different listening to it than seeing it, for sure. And maybe that's because I'm old and hanging out at Gabe's when it's late at night and I'm hot and stuff. I'm a curmudgeon at this point. So I was able to hear a lot more of what was happening when I listened to it versus seeing it. But yeah, I loved it. So yeah, like I said, things that reminded me of Young Marble Giants. A lot of the production ideas reminded me of Brian Eno, and not necessarily like the first couple records that are sort of glam rock, and not the later records that are atmospheric ambient music, but sort of those in between, like Before and After Science. Sounded very much like that to me. Like I said, R.L. Burnside, it kind of reminded me of Broadcast at times. Sort of that sort of vaporwave element that Dan was talking about reminded me of Holly Herdnod, and also a band that we reviewed a million years ago, like literally maybe the 4th episode, JJ. They're from Sweden. Then they're sort of in with like the emo rap kind of stuff, like Young Lean or whatever. But yeah, JJ was a record we reviewed. The record was called V, and it's phenomenal. But it reminded me a lot of that too. And, you know, a little bit of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Slash TV on the radio, even though they're not the same group. The reason I'm mentioning them are for the same element of that sort of like just atmospheric sound. I think both bands utilize that quite a bit. So, and the other thing I need to mention too is like everything we've been talking about sounds like a little heady, maybe, but in reality, a lot of it comes off as pretty upbeat. So I want, you know, to mention that overall, both of the records we've talked about so far are actually pretty upbeat. So
yeah, they're both a lot of fun to listen to.
Yep. So I think that's important. But yeah, Water from Your Eyes, pretty good stuff.
There are no happy endings. There are only things that happen. Buy my product. Slow it on down to the market. I've got the change in pocket. Trade you what I got. I said remember that. I said remember that. I said remember that. Remember. Buy my product.
And we're just flying right along. It's like,
Yeah.
we're going to have to slow this episode down. Listen to this one on half speed. I don't know why I'm just going crazy right now.
Like,
Maybe
are
it's
you
because I
having,
was so slowed down by the heat that I'm finally cooled off and have a bunch of energy. Or I don't know.
right? That could very well be.
Something happened. I don't know.
Well, this
Anyway.
heat is enough to wear anybody out. And then,
Ooh, this heat.
yes, this
That's
heat.
just a side recommendation to any listener who doesn't listen to this heat. You should probably listen to this heat. So for our local review,
Keep it local.
we have Frank Carroll and Dirt Chamber. Now, I don't know if it's Dirt Chamber featuring Frank Carroll or vice versa or what, but it's Frank Carroll and Dirt Chamber on the Bandcamp, so that's what we're going with. The record's called Bedlam, and I think Bedlam is kind of a code word for an insane asylum. It's my understanding. But yeah, I don't know Frank Carroll. Maybe Dan does.
Nope.
But I don't, unfortunately. But I know the person behind Dirt Chamber, and that's Kevin Hansen. Kevin, I've known for a number of years, actually. We worked together for a while. I think I knew him before that just from music. I tried to work on some stuff with him, but I am a notorious flake, and so I didn't complete my assignments. But Dirt Chamber is Kevin's project, and he's put out a lot of music under that name. A lot of it is pretty heavy, industrial, tinged electronic music. We'll just leave it at that because it does go a lot of different places. And this record isn't different. I wish that I knew more about Frank Carroll because it might help me determine what Frank Carroll contributed to this record. All the sounds on here I would definitely already associate with Kevin's work and Dirt Chamber. So I want to do a little more research, find out what Frank Carroll does and what they brought to this recording. And so I probably should have done that before the show. But anyway, at its core, Bedlam is really heavy, grimy, industrial, kind of gabber-ish, dub-ish, electronic music, digital hardcore kind of stuff. And it goes a lot of different places. There are tracks on here that are very minimal. But even at those times, even when it mellows out, it is noisy. Like everything on here literally sounds like machinery breaking, like in real time. It sounds like synthesizers melting. It just has this clipping level of being overdriven, like to the point of static, because it's so intensely grimy and overdriven. Like I said, this goes a lot of different places. It has a lot of different rhythmic elements. Like I mentioned before, we do get into some really fast BPM gabber type stuff, really heavy house stuff at times. But then also really industrial type beats too. I didn't notice any vocals on here. Maybe Dan could clarify on that. So I think overall this is an instrumental for the most part. And I think it works really well in that sense. And yeah, I like how varied it all is, but I also like how committed to a specific sort of sound and specific sort of place that it takes up in music. Like there aren't a lot of curveballs in here, it's sound wise, like sonically, but there are a lot of experimental moments and different places that the songs go within themselves, and then huge differences between the songs and how they're presented. But like I said, it's all connected with this just filthy production. And I mean, it's cool. I love it so much. And I love Kevin. And I'm sure I'd like Frank too. Yeah, I loved it. I don't know what else there is to say about it. Stuff that it reminded me of The Bug in a lot of ways, even though The Bug is a little more dubby than this, I would say. There's a group I listen to. I honestly don't know how to pronounce their name. Oshiak had elements of Skinny Puppy and Ogre, which is not surprising. I think Kevin might be the biggest Skinny Puppy fan that I know. It reminded me of Amnesia Scanner, Drum Corps. And then as far as that dub stuff, if anyone's familiar with Anger Fist and likes that, you're really this is gonna do it for you. This is right along those lines. And yeah, it's nice to hear something so committed to just being grimy, filthy, electronic music. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I really liked it. I met Kevin Hansen many years ago. Was playing in the band Accelerativ. I think Eirk and Brian were just doing guitar and drums, and he was doing electronics. I don't know, Kevin. You can clarify that in a IG message for me if I'm messing up. But Kevin, great guy. He's been in a few bands since then, and as you mentioned, Eirk, he goes under a lot of different aliases and does this. He's really dedicated to the grimy, noisy, industrial sort of sounds. And I also don't know who Frank Carroll is. I'm not sure if he's from around here or if maybe he's somebody who collaborated with Kevin like over the internet, or if they're living in the same town. I'm not really sure, but I really enjoyed this. It definitely, as you mentioned, Eirk, very grimy, very hard hitting, bombastic. I mean, all of these, pretty much all the same descriptions that you had. Very chaotic, noisy, industrial dance music. That's how I would describe this. I wish I knew a lot more about this genre, because there are a lot of bands that, I mean, you talk about them. I feel like you're definitely more of an expert in the industrial vein than I am, Eirk. And when you talk about bands like Skinny Puppy and stuff like that, I know that there's stuff from that group that I like. It's just, for some reason, I just never really, got into them. For whatever reason. I was just listening to other stuff. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so they're just an example of some, a group that I just haven't gotten around to yet. And maybe I never will. I'm not sure. But what I've heard, I really appreciate, really like. One of the reasons why I appreciate this when I hear it, especially coming from somebody like Kevin, because I know Kevin is very passionate about this stuff. you can tell that there's an immense knowledge just from listening to what he does with the genre, because it's everything I hear from him is extremely well done in what he does. I'm going to say something kind of similar to what you said, Eirk. I really appreciate it when people are dedicated to putting out like ugly sounding music. I guess I don't know how to grimy. We'll use the word grimy, but like I really like the production on this kind of stuff. Like I like the fact that it sounds like you're walking into like a factory, you know? And then it's just like these really cool sort of soundscapes and instruments, and just sort of having this passion for, you know, being just really, you know, off the wall with it. And that's kind of how I think this record is. It's very controlled, but it's kind of all over the place in that genre. It's just got a really, really awesome sound to it. Just, you know, overall, it just has elements of gabber, digital hardcore, dubstep, industrial noise, house, techno, all the things that Eirk's already said. Clearly, I don't have much to add to the conversation, but I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that it was great. I think Kevin always delivers when it comes to this type of stuff. You can tell that it's where his heart is. As far as stuff it reminds me of, I have a much, you know, and this is going to be no surprise, I have a much more limited span of groups, but like Mannequin Eater / Carl Kevorkian, who I don't know if you're familiar with who that is, Eirk.
No.
So Carl Kevorkian is a rapper. I think he may have come from the late 90s, you know, early to mid 2000s. Very much in that sort of noisy, experimental kind of rap. So like, you know, sort of predates like Death Grips and stuff like that. So we're talking like Dalek, early LP, things like that. But he does this project, this side project called Mannequin Eater. And it's definitely more industrial noisy stuff, but he does include like really noisy vocals. And as you were mentioning, Eirk, I couldn't really identify any vocals on this either. It sounded definitely instrumental to me. If there were vocals, they were definitely buried under a bunch of the chaos, which I think is awesome if that's the case. Dalek, Alec Empire kind of reminded me of the more chaotic side of like Nine Inch Nails. Yeah, what I've heard of from Skinny Puppy. So that's pretty much what this stuff reminds me of. And yeah, it's fantastic. I'm glad that you know, somebody we know is doing stuff like this, because
For sure.
I would love to see this stuff live. I don't know if he ever plays live as Dirt Chamber or not.
I don't know either. Yeah.
But I would really love to see that, because I have a feeling that it's a totally different experience if he does play live.
Yeah,
and
I would think so.
Specifically, if him and Frank Carroll would ever play live, I think it would be awesome to hear this, like in a live setting. But yeah, so very, very good stuff. Very cool stuff.
I liked your point about it's cool to know someone doing this kind of stuff, because we have people we know who do things that could be in a similar realm, you know?
Yes.
Like Sean Reed does a lot of grimy dub. You know, we have a lot of friends who do electronic noise and harsh noise and things like that. But this is somewhere different. This is like true industrial music. You know, it's controlled. It's every element of it, you know, is thought out and executed with you know, precision. Yeah, it's all executed with a lot of precision, and you know, that is different than what at least most of the people I know are doing. So really cool that Kevin's doing this stuff and has just been so dedicated to it for so long too.
Yeah, man. So, well,
Yeah. Wow. Oh, hey, I was gonna say that. Well, I guess everyone knows now that we're including a little bit of the music we review on the show. That's pretty
Yes.
cool, right?
yes, that is cool.
So now you don't have to click over to Spotify or Bandcamp or whatever to hear what we're talking about. You'll probably get an idea pretty quickly if it's something you'd be into. So that's nice. I also found out there's a podcast called Smartless. That's one of the most popular podcasts out there. And they end their shows by saying bye. And so,
Oh, seriously?
yeah. So everyone out there who thought we were hacks this whole time and just ripping people off, we did not actually know that. So
No.
so now I think we should end by saying the shortest, sharpest, most staccato bye of all time.
What if we did the opposite and we confuse people and we're like, hello, hello.
Oh yeah, like the Three Stooges / Full House.
Yeah, Three Stooges / Full House.
Who were we interviewing that we talked about that for a while? I went off about Full House.
Oh, geez, I don't remember.
Yeah,
was it Disholy? Maybe?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, listeners, since we're going to every other week, at least for a while, your assignment for your bye week or off week is to find that episode where we talked about the connection between the Three Stooges and Full House and the Hello Harmony. So, and Captain Lou Albano, how does he keep the rubber bands in his face? And what the hell all those greens and blues references are about? You guys got some homework.
It's back to school week, isn't it?
It is back to school week.
We're going back to school. We're giving them homework and everything, man. And also anybody who answers all three of those,
oh snap!
First person to do that will get to hear the sound of our voices on the next episode that we upload.
Oh yeah, that's true. And we might even say your name.
Yeah, we might even say your name.
Wow, what a prize.
Yeah.
30 other people will hear your name.
30 people.
Wow. You're going to be a star. Whew.
Everybody
it's too hot.
is a star.
Fly.
Starlight, star bright.
Madonna. Woo, all the hits.
Sly, Madonna. What other songs have star in it?
Starry, Starry Night.
Starry, Starry Night.
Is that a Don McLean?
Yep, I think so. Yeah.
Star Fuckers.
Oh yeah, by Nine Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Starsky and Hutch theme.
Starsky and Hutch theme. Yeah. Oh man,
there's got to be some Smashing Pumpkins song that has stars in the title.
I would think so. That's exactly what I was thinking too.
Wow.
And the only reason why is because of the melancholy cover.
Yeah. So you guys have a fourth assignment.
We're just gonna keep piling it on, man.
Yeah. The longer you listen, the more work you're gonna have to do.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here.
We're not above flunking you.
Yeah, you ever been flunked by a couple flunkies?
Yeah, a couple of.
Doesn't make you feel good.
No. All right.
Shit.
Well.
Okay.
So are we going to do the whole like very stark bye?
I don't know how we're going to do it. I'm at a loss.
Well, how about we?
Let's be very official about it. Maybe.
Let's be official about it. So
yes.
Okay. How about this? It's our first time doing it differently, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm going to rub my hands together. I'm going to clap.
Okay.
And then on the count of 3, let's say bye.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I don't know. It seems kind of mean.
It does kind of. Do you want to?
How about we just say, thank you so much for listening, and shit, that doesn't work. I don't know. Just thanks for, man.
Thanks for listening.
Sucks.
Yeah. You're like not.
Okay, your 5th assignment is to tell us how we should now end the show since we can't say bye anymore.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. 5
You guys got some
assignments.
work to do.
Yeah, man.
Damn. But you got 2 weeks to do it, so get it together.
2 weeks.
Get it together, bud.
You got no excuses.
Yeah.
No excuses, or it's detention time.
Yeah.
But
I don't feel tardy. Full circle. David Lee Roth.
Yes.
He's the bus driver.
Sit down, Waldo.
Sit down, Waldo. That's how we should end the show every time. All right, thanks for listening. Sit down,
Waldo. Sounds good to me. All right, so
bye.
bye.